Hello dear and fellow tummy sufferers, it's great to have you with us today here in the stunning scenery of Lake Windermere, and I'm sat outside a wonderful little pub called the Cuckoo Brow Inn, sampling some of the local beverages. Very nice too. This will come back in just a second, but hold on. Just needed to enjoy a sip there. So I recently did an in-depth post about my sort of failed faith healing, which has been a difficult pill to swallow. But I really do want to reiterate really, that I do experience and have experienced genuine freedom from some of the anxiety associated with what I ate, particularly with the dairy, and continue to work on dismantling this sort of unhealthy self-focus that all these problems can inflict on us. So, while I've been putting it off, it is now time to properly take on what they call an elimination diet. Why have I postponed on this, given that I've known that I'm not properly better, despite some progress? I think the main reason could be quite useful for a number of folk actually, and is to do with anxiety. So I don't want to offend folks or to speak out of turn or try to apply what may have been my situation in any kind of blanket fashion, but it is possible that for me, strong and apparently competent messages about what could be causing my stomach to react or not lodge deep in like an anxiety producing and stomach related zone of my brain. So I did not want to rush back into this diet or that diet because I recognised that my anxiety was also generated by some of these diets. Very soon, however, I will be ready mentally to take on and structure my own elimination diet. I want to be super clear about what I do mean when I say elimination diet. I do not mean FODMAP elimination diet. My elimination diet is going to be quite narrow to start off with, narrower than that I think, with foods and drinks that my stomach brain, which, alright, we know is not entirely reliable, but that my stomach brain tells me are okay, and I'm going to stick with that and just that for a week and measure the results with you. As the week progresses, and it's a stretchy week, which can be extended, I'm expecting during that week and during that period to have what we might call a full reset. However, if that's not forthcoming, then I will just continue to narrow the foods and drinks until that reset occurs. Once I am confident that I have got a reset and it's a sustained one, then I will start to reintroduce foods according to priority and pleasure. There are some important principles here which I think I should just lay out quickly. The info available that I can see about food intolerances creates a very tricky problem, which is basically that an intolerance can be physically located way down in the gut, i.e. the large intestine. But how long does it take for food that we eat to get all the way down there? Up to 8 hours. And since my meals are spaced apart by periods of time significantly smaller than 8 hours, it gets horrendously complicated trying to work out what might have caused the discomfort or pain that we're experiencing. So how can we possibly measure what has caused the issue? The answer for me, sadly, he says as he has another sip, is restraint. It seems like the very slow road, but only one single solitary isolated food or drink is to be introduced in any 24-hour period. That's the only way I can know that it was, if there was a non-anxiety cause for gas, bloatation, discomfort, etc., that it's this product or this quantity or this intensity of this food or drink. So that is the first principle that I've decided that I'm going to be applying for my reintroduction phase. But that principle of one thing per 24-hour period maximum is not sufficient. So the second principle is going to be number two, is to introduce more slowly those potential aggravators that I love over a longer period, like beer and chocolate and milk and all sorts of other things, it really does make sense to just pause and think, well, what do I actually like? Where am I going with this? You know, Brussels sprouts means a lot less to me. I don't even like them, so why even bother wasting 24 hours testing Brussels sprouts? But when I get to beer, I will not be able to do reintroduction in just 24 hours. The reason for this is that my suspicion is that my system can handle this at a particular quantity or intensity. Like maybe it's going to be 2 a week or 3 a week. I'm not sure yet. I'm going to find that out as we go ahead. This is scary complicated when you think about independent mild aggravators like, well, what about beer and caffeine? I'll probably have to work on one, and then if I establish that it is a mild aggravator, I'll roll back to 0 on that one, enjoy the reset, and then do a slow increase in the caffeinated beverage in the same way that I tried with the beer. Let's say both of them end up at about being 3 a week as okay. Then that's 3 mild aggravators, drinking ones per week. So I can pick and choose between those, presumably, how I want to juggle it. That's the second principle. So mild aggravators, they're going to take longer than 24 hours, and to do them in isolation, one from the other. The third principle is to perform these experiments in as hydrated a state as possible. Over the years, my hydration levels have consistently been linked to my gut discomfort, and there's absolutely no point that I can see in making this process any less pleasant than it needs to be. The fourth principle, and I think it's going to be my last one, is to be really long-term in my thinking. I've suffered in this area now for 8 years, and gastroenterologists have told me that it may be like this for the rest of my life. That's a depressing thought, but if I am to have a very extended reintroduction phase of most of my foods, like say over a year or something like that, then what's that really in the bigger scheme of things? There is also a link here to suffering better. How do we suffer? But that's such a big topic that I would prefer to take the time to think that through with you in a separate video log. So another way to imagine this whole process is a bit like, I don't know if you know how to drive a car, or a manual car. You have all these gears, and there's also a reverse gear, which is quite important. And I think this mental image can be very helpful for us, for me in any case, because we can use this image to sort of prevent us from falling into traps like, it's been a total waste of time, I just need to start over, or just abandon everything. No, we can just wind the clock back a bit, cruise a bit, get back to neutral, get another stomach reset in, and then rethink again, retake stock of the situation. I haven't mentioned it, but it is going to be important for me to do a food diary. I won't always be able to stick to it in a very rigorous way, I'm sure, so I just need to be very careful that I realise in my mind that it's just a diary. I have to be so careful that it doesn't become this like kind of an obsessive thing and like a Bible or something. Anyway, so that's it for the four principles of my own elimination diet, which is definitely not a FODMAP one. It's something specific to me, and I'm just going to run very quickly through the 4 of them again. So number 1 was to reintroduce just the one food in a 24-hour period because of the 8-hour delay in reaching the lower intestine. The number 2 is to have a longer period still than that for some foods which are potential mild aggravators, so that we can work out what is the kind of intensity that is sustainable for a week. And the third principle was about staying as hydrated as possible. And the fourth principle was about staying long-term in our thinking, not being dragged down into despair about any one given situation. And at the same time, not rejoicing too fast that everything's been fixed either. So that's all from me for the Freeton blog. My name's John, and I look forward to catching up with you again very soon. Cheers.